Hi guys, just thought I'd make this video for you all because I know a lot of you are interested in radio and particularly different types of radio systems around the world, if you will. So I'm in the northwest of England and this is a DAB car stereo. It's a Kenwood aftermarket unit. Basically, that's what I'm going to talk about now. So DAB, digital audio broadcasting, DAB, whatever you want to call it, basically it was meant to be the UK's replacement for your traditional FM medium wave, long wave stations even. We still have one of them going. So yeah, when it was first announced, DAB was advertised and touted as having CD quality sound, and that was the big draw, the big idea with it. It was supposed to be better, more resilient in terms of interference and sound quality compared to, say, FM, especially medium wave. However, those statistics and those claims sadly didn't really ring true, and the reason for that I'll go into now. So basically in the UK and anywhere else that has DAB, stations are grouped into what they call ensembles or multiplexes. Basically each frequency can have multiple different radio stations in them, and of course there are limitations in terms of a bandwidth capacity, and on DAB that's measured in kilobits a second, just like with an MP3 file or any other audio file. Of course, the lower the bit rate, the worse the sound is in theory. Now, original DAB is based on MP2, and that is quite an old standard now. It dates back to the early 90s, late 80s even, I believe, which is when DAB was first tested. So in terms of resilience for interference, it's not the best. In terms of sound quality, the files don't really compress down too well, or the stations in this case don't really compress down too well, which means that there's kind of a trade-off between quality and quantity of stations. Now, as I was saying, in the UK we have ensembles, multiplexes. At present we currently have 3 national multiplexes. Now, the first one is BBC National DAB. The other one we have is Digital One, so called because it was the first commercial, advertisement funded stations, multiplex available. And then last but not least we have Sound Digital. Now, they are the national stations. They do broadcast on higher power, and the interesting thing with DAB is wherever you go in the country, these ensembles are on exactly the same frequency. So provided the coverage is suitable, you don't have to mess around retuning your radio. It just works. All the stations are synchronized well between transmitters. I haven't really noticed a drop off when moving between transmitters, just driving about generally. In addition to that though, we do have more localized issues, more localized stations and multiplexes, ensembles. So I'm in Lancashire, and near me where I am, because I'm sort of on the edge, we have the Lancashire multiplex ensemble, depending what terminology you want to use. We also have things like the Merseyside one, we have one for Greater Manchester, and so on and so forth. Now, these were traditionally more localised stations, but over the years regulations have been relaxed, which means more stations are now networked, and they've sort of lost the way a little bit. They're not really local like they used to be, apart from a couple of opt-outs in, say, the morning drive time, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a bit of a loss. So Ofcom, the regulators, are equivalent of the FCC to those of you in the US, I guess, decided to then launch something called small-scale DAB. Now, these are just additional multiplexes, but the coverage area is much more limited. For example, you might be limited to a town or a city like Liverpool, maybe Manchester, Leyland, Preston and Chorley, for example, where I'm from. They've got one as well, and the coverage on them isn't as great. But anyway, in terms of the functionality of the radio, let's get into it. So this is just how the Kenwood looks. Of course, you've got your usual car stereo features, so you can have presets on the side where you can put your stations in. You can view stations by a list. Now, the brilliant thing about DAB is it's just basically a one-button tuning. There's no having to scan the frequencies manually like you would with an FM or AM radio. You just refresh the station list and it comes up with a big long list of stations, and as we can see here, there is a lot of them. Now, one thing I will point out is you may see, for example, if we look at these heart ones here, you may see that there's a lot of similar stations, and the reason for that is because some of them are on national multiplexes, others are on local multiplexes. Now, the reason for that is because the UK is in this weird position where we started with DAB, the original format, but then we launched DAB+, which is the new improved version, if you will. Basically, the benefit of DAB+ is compression, so you don't need as high of a bit rate to get the same sound quality as you did with the original. I believe it's based on an AAC codec. Other benefit to DAB+ though as well is it's more resilient to interference. Now, if you haven't heard DAB before, the standard version, if you are moving into an area with a bit of an iffy signal and the station starts to come in and out, it sounds like what many would refer to as bubbling mud or burbling mud, if you will. Whereas with DAB+, it just kind of fades in and out ever so slightly, so it's much easier on the ears. But the benefit for us as, listeners, is, if you will, is you can fit more stations in on DAB+ compared to regular DAB without compromising the sound quality too much. So obviously I can't really play much in terms of the stations to demonstrate for you, but if we have a look at, say, Heart Northwest, if we go to this station here, you can see we've got station name just like RDS on an FM radio, and then we've got the DLS, the text scrolling. But if we look through the menus, unfortunately this here, song information, isn't normally implemented from my experience here, which is a bit of a shame because it'd be handy to have that, but no, the broadcasters just usually put it in the radio text. I don't know the exact reason why they do that. Maybe it's easier, maybe it's compatibility, I don't know. But as we could see, this station is on the Liverpool ensemble, so this is exactly that is for the Liverpool City region, channel 10C. And if we go through, we can see it's on regular DAB, 112 kilobits a second. Now, in terms of stations, that is not bad. That is not bad for original DAB, because I've seen them go as low as 56, 64 kilobits a second, and when they go that low, they regularly drop into mono as well, which isn't great. I suppose in a car where a lot of people listen to radio, it's not too bad when you get the road noise and things like that going on, but yeah, it's not enjoyable really when you get to the lower bit rates. But anyway, with the duplication, we can see, as I said here, 112 kilobits a second. But if I say have a look at Hot UK, when this one comes through, we can see there it's on DAB plus 40 kilobits a second, and it's on channel 11D. So yes, it is a lower bit rate, but as I say, it's DAB plus, which means you get a much better sound quality there. So it benefits the commercial broadcasters and it benefits us as listeners as well. In terms of other features that a lot of DAB radios have is things like seamless switching. So for example, if I tune into a station on FM, if the head unit decides that there is a better signal available for the same station on DAB, it will automatically switch over. Similarly, if I'm listening to a station on DAB and it starts to get a bit flaky, drops out a bit, if there is an FM station of equivalence, it will automatically switch over to that itself. So really handy to have, and it's nice to have if you're driving in somewhere a little bit more remote, a little bit more rural, hilly, for example, where the radio does its best to just basically keep you enjoying your music. We have an absolute ton of stations here, so as you can see, by the way, these are all organised in a nice little list here. So we have some local stations, some national, we have talk stations, we have music, so absolute ton of different stations to go for here. So yeah, this is basically how it works. You just select your stations, music comes through. So this one is channel 12A, this is Smooth Country. I think this is a national multiplex. Oh no, it's not, sorry, that's on the Lancashire one. Okay. Audio quality it's not found yet, but that's because I'm on the edge of the signal area, but I believe it's 64 kilobits potentially for that one. But then we have national stations there. As we can see, 40 kilobits DAB+. That is typically what the stations run at when they are on DAB+. In terms of original DAB, the best sound quality ones are the BBC ones. Now, the reason for that is because the BBC in the UK, if you don't know, it's funded by taxpayers, basically. Something called a TV licence. It's a bit of a catch-all term, but basically in the UK the BBC doesn't have any ads on it whatsoever. So if you go on the website, if you listen to those stations, watch their TV channels, there are no ads whatsoever. The caveat is, though, if you do want to watch anything on BBC's catch-up service, or if you're watching live TV via an aerial, a dish, cable, streamed, even if you don't watch the BBC, you do have to pay a TV licence. So yeah, that is a separate conversation. There's a lot of controversy around that. A lot of people are obviously calling for the axe of it because of the age of streaming and all that, but that is how things stand at the moment. But anyway, because of how the BBC is funded in the UK, it is not allowed to operate for any sort of profit. It is a public service. So the BBC stations, like Radio 1 for example, they have to be available to as much of the population as possible. So we find that these ones do broadcast in DAB, not DAB+, but at a much, much higher sound quality. Reason being is they have this multiplex, the ensemble, they have all this space on it. They can't put extra stations on it apart from the ones that they have, the ones that they operate. So rather than let the space go to waste, they just fill it up, which is good for us as the end users. So yeah, we've got various BBC ones there. The local ones, though, such as BBC Lancashire, Merseyside, they are broadcast on the local ensembles, which means that they're not actually on the BBC's transmitter. So we are having to pay private operators to transmit these stations, if you will. But yeah, that's 128 kilobits a second there, regular DAB. In some areas, I believe they are looking at moving the BBC stations to DAB+, but that is a bit of a niche one, and there's no confirmed timescale or dates for switch over for the BBC ones, because like I say, it's public service broadcasting. They have to make sure that they are meeting their remit, which is to be as accessible and available to as much as the UK as possible. And with DAB Plus only becoming more mainstream over the last, I think, say since 2016, 2017 in the UK, there's not as many people who have radios that will cope with that. Now, some of the commercial stations, they've decided that for them, they'd rather switch to DAB Plus because lower bit rates means that they save money in terms of, buying their space on the ensembles, if you will, and the benefit of, like I said earlier, better sound quality for the end users. So commercials can do what they want, but in terms of the BBC, they are stuck with regular DAB for now. But yeah, that is about it. So yeah, that is DAB in a nutshell. And as you can see where I am, there are an absolute ton of stations, 80s, 90s, local. So yeah, hope that's been useful to you guys. I'm not very good on a camera usually, so yeah. Thanks for watching, and if you do have any questions, feel free to just ask away.